Our featured presentation will be on maximizing your decision-making power, presented by our legal officers, Anika Collymore Taylor and Shanna Goddard. Let me share a bit about them. Anika Collymore Taylor and Shanna Goddard are legal officers in the legal department of the Barbados Public Workers Credit Union Limited. In this role, they are responsible for the supervision of the mortgage process as well as the estate planning process, while also providing advisory duties to the organization as a whole. Anika and Shanna are both attorneys at law in practice for 8 years, having been called to the bar in Barbados in the year 2015. They were both awarded a Bachelor of Laws degree with honors from the University of the West Indies, Cayfield campus, and a legal education certificate at the Hugh Wooden Law School in Trinidad and Tobago. Before becoming legal officers at the credit union in 2022, they both gained a wealth of knowledge in private practice. Anika practiced in the areas of civil litigation, debt recovery, estate planning, administration of estates, personal injury negotiations, and conveyancing. Shanna practiced in general areas of law, which includes conveyancing, estate planning, administration of estates, and civil litigation. In their roles as legal officers, they are passionate about providing not only quality service to our membership, but also to educate as well. Let us give these young ladies a warm welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sorry. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anika. And my name is Shanna. We want to thank Michelle for that warm introduction. And we first want to, sorry, I think this getting in the way of my mic. Is that better? Great. Just want to thank Michelle for that warm introduction. When Anika and I joined the organization 2 years ago, it feels like a lifetime ago, but when we joined the organization, coming from private practice, I would say it was a culture shock, but we really embraced the credit union culture. And we both acknowledged and agreed that we not only wanted to provide the best service for our members, but we also wanted to educate as well. And so that's why we always welcome these kind of sessions to share our knowledge and make law more digestible. We always say when it comes to law as an educational topic, it could be quite intimidating, I would acknowledge, and also it always seems intense when it comes to a decision around something legal. And what we want to share with you guys today is some tips, some information that will make when you are making these decisions that they don't seem so intense and really maximize your decision-making power.
All right, so as Shanna said, decisions. We make decisions every day. Some of us, we probably are thinking right now what we're going to eat tonight. We made a decision to come here today, and sometimes we are faced with some of the hardest decisions, and some of those decisions are in relation to estate planning. And these decisions, we're hoping to make an easier process for you today. We're going to provide information to you surrounding what is estate planning, who is involved in the process, and we're hoping that by doing this presentation that you will be in a better place to make those decisions in your lives. some of you might have assets or intend to acquire assets at some point in the future, and I think it will be vital for this presentation to be able to hear the information and for it to digest with you, and so that you can be better informed when you have to make those decisions in your life.
All right, so we can start off with a question. Who here thinks that they don't have an estate? So everybody here thinks they have an estate? Great.
Okay, so that's good to hear.
Right, so we're here to agree with you. Most of you do have an estate.
And when we speak about estate, we are speaking about assets of value. These assets of value could be tangible objects. It could be the house that you live in and you own. It could be the contents of your home. It could be your personal items. It could also be tools of trade. And many times we forget about the tools of trade, which could be assets forming your estate. And these tools of trade, for some people, they might be carpenters. They have tools. It could be barbers who also own tools, and these tools are what they use in their business. And we are faced with many scenarios with individuals who are creating their estate plan with us, and their thought sometimes never really goes to what they should do with those tools of trade. So we also want to kind of put it to you that consider your tools of trade, of assets, to be a part of your estate.
Not only those tangible assets will form part of your estate, it's also the assets that you can't touch, your intangible assets. These are your credit union account, your bank account. Not saying that you can't touch the money, but in theory, it's an asset that you own, and you own it in its name, essentially. Also, it could include the business interests. It could include stocks. It could include government bonds, if you do life insurance policies, as well as your pension plans. These are things that you own, and other than a contract booklet, it's really in theory. It's not anything that you can touch, retirement, but yeah, it's an asset that you own, and you should always consider it, including business interests. I bet we all know somebody that turned a hobby during the pandemic into a business. So now in 2024, the pandemic is past, your business is still thriving. You might be thinking, what do I do with this business? It's not my 9 to 5, but who can I pass this business on to? Those are all things that you might need to consider when you're estate planning.
So the next question is, what is an estate plan? Estate planning is an action taken, or actions taken, or decisions taken in your lifetime to determine what is going to happen to your assets in your lifetime or after death. When we speak about before or after death, these are important stages in our lives. Many times we own assets and plan for what we're going to do with them in our lifetime, but we never, sometimes some of us never consider what will happen to them after death. And so when we are speaking about estate planning, it involves multiple actions that we take. It could be many things. It could be opening bank accounts, acquiring life insurances, and many different steps that we take in our lifetimes. And we consider them action plans.
All right, so it's who needs estate planning? And really, it's anyone over the age of 18 that has an asset of value. I know many of you are thinking 18 is so young. At 18, what did I own? But you could be like Harriet, and your mother gave you a thrift club account when you were 0 and was putting money in it every month for you. Your godparents was putting every birthday for you. And you know, by 18, you have quite a sizable asset. It might just be that one, but it's quite a sizable asset. And I always say that life is so indifferent. People die now. You don't need to be old to be dying. You don't need to be old to get ill. You never know what can happen. If you have quite a sizable asset, you want to protect it as best as you can.
Exactly. So as Shana said, you don't need to be, some people believe you should be mature to create an estate plan. But as she said, 18 years, once you're 18, you can get that plan started and put certain things in place. And also consider it assets of value.
Right, there's so many myths that surround estate planning. Like I mentioned, many times we hear that I am too young to put something in place. I do not have enough assets. I don't have multiple assets. I don't need to put anything in place yet. I only have one asset. I don't need to do anything. So we're here to kind of debunk some of those myths as well. Who here, I have a question, who here thought that to put your affairs in order, you had to be elderly and ill? By show of hands. Richard. Well, that's good that you didn't think that it's only limited to persons that are a particular age or are ill. Who here, another question, who here thought putting your affairs in order meant that you are creating a will? Who here thought putting your affairs in order was just preparing a will? Right. That's a common thought as well, that all you need to do for estate planning really means I am preparing a will. But we're here to share with you that there are many actions you could take to put your affairs in order. I have one more question. Who here thought that estate planning was something for the rich or people that have multiple assets? It's very common to think that you have to have a whole set of assets to start putting things in place, or you need to be retired to start thinking about these things. But you could be young, as I mentioned, and starting to put these things in place.
The reality is, small assets, when placed together, become something of value. And it's always important to have in mind that there's something that must be done with it. And there are certain opportunities that we have in our lifetime, or certain things that we can do in our lifetime to take care of these assets. So the myth that Shanna would have mentioned about being too young, that's not true at all. Also, persons believe that they are in good health and they don't need to. Sometimes we can't control the things that happen to us or even happen to our family. So it's important that we realize that we are not invincible, that things could happen and sometimes they happen suddenly to us. So it's always good to make sure that we take this into consideration and make the decision to plan for the things that may inevitably occur in our lives or things that we also cannot predict.
Right, because accidents can happen at any time. And just like insurance, you can't put it in place after the fact. So it's always best to be proactive because it's your life. You don't want anyone making decisions for you.
Exactly. And again, as Shanna would have mentioned, some persons would have said that they might not be rich. But in some instances, in most instances, this doesn't always have to be the case. Some persons say that their lives are too simple and that they are probably not, they don't have access to certain resources that will provide them the opportunity to plan for their estate. But the reality is there are certain things in our lives that we can do that will be manageable. I mean, there's a cost to everything, but be mindful that although your life might be simple, although you might not be rich, although you might be in perfect health, or although you might think that you're in good health right now, it's always good to create a plan. And there's also a myth that people believe that they can do it all by themselves. Doing it by yourself is not always advised depending on the thing that you choose to do. It's always helpful depending on the avenue that you go, that you get the legal representation to do so, or if it's in relation to insurances that you acquire the required representative to ensure that these steps are taken and taken in the best way possible.
Right, so we're now going to get into some of those actions